If you're just joining us, I'm Tim Barkley with Charleston Home Design magazine, and today's radio show is coming to you from Energy One America, located at 454 Jessen Lane, just off of Clements Ferry Road. And we're very happy to have Energy One America as one of the sponsors of the Charleston Home Design Show on Daniel Island, coming up April 26th and 27th at Family Circle Stadium on Daniel Island. And now we're talking with David Hill with the Verdi Company. How you doing, David?
Hey, Tim. I'm great. How are you?
Good, thank you. David, tell everybody about the Verdi Company.
Well, the Verdi Company is a design-build company. I'm an architect, so we do the architecture, and we also do the construction. We're general contractors. It's kind of nice to offer that as a package, but over and above that, our focus has been on green building for almost 30 years now.
Gotcha. And Verdi is spelled V-E-R-D-I. What does Verdi mean?
Well, Verdi is Italian for green.
Italian for green.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to live in Italy for a little while when I was in graduate school, and I always kind of had that in the back of my mind as the name for a company. And I wanted to have a name that expressed the fact that we focused on green building, but I didn't want to hit people over the head and shoulders with the name. And so Verdi seemed like a kind of a subtle way to do that.
Sure. David, you are an architect by trade?
I am.
Okay. And you're also a builder?
That's right.
Okay. So Verdi, the Verdi Company is a design build company and specializing in green building construction. And it must have sort of cracked you up a little bit back in like the I guess the early 2000s when that term green started to really take off, and everybody was claiming that they were green. And it was, for me, it was like, boy, some of the things that people are touting and they're so darn proud of. My grandparents did those things, and they didn't get any credit for it whatsoever.
Right. Well, absolutely. A lot of times we say green building is 90% about good building. Can we build a stronger structure? Can we build one that is well insulated and well sealed? Can we build one that keeps the water out? Can we build one that is durable in its finishes and has good indoor air quality? I think you could look at homes that were built 150 years ago and say that they accomplished a lot of those same goals. I think the difference is now what we do is we look at, okay, what now? What else can we do? Sometimes that's looking at the nature and character of the materials. Sometimes that's looking at, well, it's always looking at how much water we're using, how much energy we're using, how much gas we're using. So if we can build and hit all of those sort of good building features and, oh, by the way, significantly lower bills and increase indoor air quality, those are things that we do on every house, every project. And those are not the panels on the roof or whirligigs in the backyard. I mean, that's just good, sound, solid building.
Gotcha. And and sometimes people think when you're talking about green construction or green building or a green product that it's going to cost twice as much. It's like buying something that's light in the grocery store. Somehow that always costs more than the regular product out there.
It takes some money to keep that sugar out of there, right? Yeah.
Right.
Well, listen, that was one of the reasons that we got into construction. We've been doing building in addition to the architecture for 15 to 20 years now. And it was the fact that we saw two things happening. One was what you talked about earlier, where people were basically, the term is greenwashing. I think most people have heard that. They were companies were claiming to be environmentally conscious and respectful companies, and they really weren't. It was it made for good marketing PR stuff, and so that therefore was very confusing at the consumer level. Well, what really is green and what's not? 20 years later, here we're seeing a lot more in the way of standards that say, and as you said in the grocery store analogy, is this light buttered popcorn or not? Well, somebody has come up with some sort of standard as far as how much fat can be in buttered popcorn before you can call it light. Well, that's what all these green building standards are about. So on one hand, 20 years ago, we saw a lot of greenwashing back then. And on the other hand, if people really wanted to kind of jump into the deep end of green, there was a huge reservoir of ignorance about how to get there. if you talk to a subcontractor or a builder and you said, well, here's how we're going to go green and here's what we want to do, they'd say, that's great. Get out your checkbook because it's really going to cost you. I mean, I'd see heating and air subs, it would just double their price because they really didn't know how to get to where they were supposed to get to. They just knew if they had enough money, they'd get there somehow. And we, frankly, 15, 20 years ago, just got tired of sitting on the other side of the table and saying, we know this is doable. We've done it. It can be done, and just fighting that fight anew with every new builder, every new sub. And so we just sort of incorporated that into part of our business model, and so we've been building very happily ever since.
Yeah, and evidence of that, the Verdi company, you folks have built quite a few homes in the North Charleston area, right?
That's correct. In the Oak Terrace Preserve
Terrace, right?
neighborhood, which is near the School of the Arts and the academic magnet there.
Right, and these are very affordable homes that you've built. These aren't super expensive.
They are not. I think that green building can fit any price point. We have demonstrated, even with truly affordable housing, we've got some nonprofit clients here in the area that we've done real affordable housing for. And we're talking about people at an economic price point that it's great to get somebody into a house, but if the house is using too much energy and water and electricity, can they afford to pay the utility bills? And so we've helped these particular nonprofit clients go in that direction and make those houses more efficient. Oak Terrace, a good sort of entry-level market point housing product that we're doing there. We're a little bit different in Oak Terrace in that with the architectural abilities, every house we build over there is unique. It's kind of neat. We're able to sort of fit the house to our client's lifestyle instead of the other way around.
Not
which is
cookie
nice.
cutter.
Right. And I'll tell you what we're really seeing a lot more of these days, in a direction we're starting to move more and more in the direction of, is at the higher end of custom residential. I think that is a sector of the market that we're seeing more activity in, and we'd like to do more and more of, where people are starting to realize that over and above sort of this can we save the earth perspective, which you and I had a conversation previously about how much of a you want to remind me? You said there was a percentage, a study you were just reading, and
sure,
I think it's very consistent.
When there was a survey that asked people why they might choose a green building product versus like you would think that maybe, well, I want to save the world, I want to save the planet, that would rank very high. It was actually only 8% of the respondents said that was their motivation for choosing a green product. It was more, they were more motivated by saving money and buying something that was more efficient.
Right, and that's what we've seen that for years and years and years, and that's what we always called checkbook environmentalists. In other words, they had enough money to do whatever they wanted to, and whether it made economic sense or not, they were going to do it because it was the right thing for the planet. And look, you got to applaud that attitude, but that is a very small. I'd actually say 8% sounds high to me, based on our experience. I think that the two other features that people look for in a greenhouse or a green product or a green system, anything that goes in there, is, as you said, sort of cost savings. But I think over and above that, there's the features and the benefits of this particular system. I think that for a long time there, anytime you said the word, oh, this material, this product has a X% recycled content, people were thinking about tires or something that they're good, but maybe they're not up to the standards of new. Well, that's not true. In fact, a lot of these green products have had to go through much more rigorous testing. But classic example I can give you is we were at a Earth Day a couple years ago out at one of the beach communities, and we had a tankless water heater there. And I think, again, 10 plus years ago, people sort of had heard of tankless water heaters, but they weren't quite sure if they worked. And, of course, the price point was much higher back then. And so it was always the guy down the street that you heard about that got a tankless water heater.
Yeah.
Well, these days, they're much more common. I think, in fact, expected in the houses that people do. And out at this particular Earth Day, we were talking about, well, this tankless water heater, it's going to save you money on your monthly bill. And frankly, those people, I think they were interested in that, but they were much more interested in the fact that, in theory, it's an endless stream of hot water coming out. And I don't think they had any intention of just running hot water constantly, but anybody who's got a couple of teenagers in their house and everybody's trying to line up and take showers one morning can probably appreciate that there's a consistent supply of hot water. And so I think now that you see these hot water, these water heaters, for example, coming in more and more and more as an expectation and a presence in the housing market, it's almost like the cost savings are a value-added benefit. And if you take that a next step further, you get back down to that checkbook environmentalist or that 8% that says, okay, so I've got this great feature, I'm saving some money, and oh, by the way, in saving money, I am burning less fuels, and so you get the whole range of benefits. But I'm not sure that, well, the study you said right there supports that that's not why people go after that initially.
Right. And here in Charleston, we have a lot of people moving to the area, a lot of people retiring. A lot of people they want bigger houses, but they don't want the big, have to pay the big bills at the end of the month for their energy and so forth. And so the Verdi company is able to help even some of these higher end homeowners that are looking, they want a big enough house that they can have all their family come down and visit and so forth. You folks are able to integrate a lot of these green building features into even a larger size house.
Absolutely. It works at any price point, and everybody's got a little bit different bag of priorities they're carrying around with them. We just hope green building is within that bag, because that makes for the best possible client for us. But even at that larger home, it's interesting to me how often we've seen at that level even some economy of scale in terms of the architectural planning component of things. I mean, if somebody says, well, I don't know exactly what I want, it's going to be a 6,500 square foot house, I think because of the high quality design we bring and some of the ideas that we generate or have seen before, we're able to incorporate that even at the higher end. So, for example, we have a client a couple of years ago that they were going to put 2 full guest suites in for their adult children to come visit, and then they were going to put another suite in just for an extra guest suite, and of course they had their master suites. They had 4 suites in this house. You know, if that's what you want, that's what you want, but everybody's got a budget and everybody's working backwards from a budget.
Right.
We started hitting a point where they said, okay, we're at the upper end, what can we do? Well, perhaps in these full guest suites we could do a little bit of a Jack and Jill between those two. Hey, not a bad idea. Perhaps this other additional guest suite could also be your home office. In other words, we could use a Murphy bed up against the wall. So you still have the additional guest suite, but now that it doubles as your office, and you're wireless. And so if you had a bonus guest in there, you could always pull the laptop out. So maybe Thanksgiving morning it might be a little crowded with everybody in there. But I think people see that. I think people see the value in good planning. And of course, what we're seeing a lot of at the higher end also is people who have large families now that intend this to be their last home. And so what do you do with a 6,000 square foot home when you start having kids who are off? And they come back to visit. Oh, well, maybe there's a planned future use for some of that space. Becomes an exercise room, art studio, is a wall taken down later and patched up in between. And so there's a lot of good things, I think, that all revolve around green building when you just start talking about smart planning. And the great thing about those ideas is that you're not talking about writing a check for a thing or a system or a product. We're throwing out ideas and trying to come up with the most efficient way to satisfy the needs of a family, whether it's functional, aesthetic, or entertainment, or whatever.
Well, how can folks learn more about the Verdi Company?
Well, we've got a pretty good website. I'm hoping in the next few weeks it'll be even better. We're at theverdicompany.com, or you can call us at 843-475-3317.
All right, terrific. Well, we've been talking with David Hill with the Verdi Company. Thanks so much, David.
Thanks, Tim.